Bankrupt. That's 1-800-BANKRUPT. Call now.
On the next Montel.
I literally would die without cannabis.
Marijuana, dangerous drug or medicine?
Jeffries' life changed immediately when he started taking this medication.
It has not met the test of medicine.
Do you want me to just die?
I know there are prescription drugs that can help her problem.
An issue that has never been discussed this way on national television. The federal government is kicking in doors. They are arresting sick people.
Don't go away. That's coming up right now on Montel.
Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. You know, today's show is about an issue that I will tell you is extremely close to my heart. Here's the question, and I'll put it out here to the American public. Marijuana is an illegal drug. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. We know it as a fact. But is it also a promising medical treatment? For thousands of years, it has been considered a medical treatment. It was not until the United States government in 1937 outlawed it that the rest of the world followed suit and attempted to outlaw it also. Is it a medical treatment, or is it something that we should keep and maintain and make sure it stays illegal? My first guest is a wife and a mother who is taking her fight all the way to the Supreme Court. I want you to take a look at this.
My name is Angel McClary Rage. I'm a mother of 2 teenagers. I'm 38 years old. I'm extremely ill. My first sensation in the morning is pain.
Many mornings, Angel is in such bad shape that she can't get out of bed by herself. She suffers from a broad range of medical conditions, life-threatening wasting syndrome. She has real trouble keeping her weight up. From seizures, brain tumor also. She was confined to a wheelchair.
I've tried numerous narcotics and opiates. Not only was I having side effects from these drugs, and they were making me sick, but they didn't work. I mean, I wasn't really getting any relief. I was sick of the doctors because they were all telling me, you know, the same thing. I couldn't take it anymore. The pain, not being able to sleep. I couldn't even hug my children. My daughter, she cried, "Mom, why can't you do the things that other mommies do?" And I didn't know what to tell her. What could I tell her? I tried all the drugs. Nothing was working. What could you tell a child? And I was angry. I wanted a life. I wanted more than anything to be here for my kids. And I gave up. And in August of '97, I tried to commit suicide. And then, you know, cannabis came into my life. A nurse pulled me aside. "Angel, have you ever tried medical marijuana?" I was extremely offended. I was like, how dare you even suggest such a thing? I thought the same thing that the feds thought. That's a crime. Until reality came into play. This is medical cannabis. This medicine here is not what people think it is. It is not the marijuana that you get on the street. This is medicine. This is what is saving my life. It was really amazing to me. Here I was feeling like I had just walked into a whole nother world. I was getting relief. Right now my brain tumor, my doctors are saying is stable. They think that I found my own cure. It was like about 1.5 years after starting using cannabis that I got out of that wheelchair. That's a miracle. And I'm not gonna let anybody take that miracle away from me. I smoke almost 9 pounds a year. That's a lot of cannabis, and I don't get high at all. Sometimes I smoke it, but I also need to vaporize it quite a bit because vaporizing, you don't get the benzenes and all the other stuff from the lighter. I'm going to be making cannabis zucchini bread to treat my fatigue, my muscle pain, my spasms. Okay, I'm now going to add the cannabis oil. Right now I'm having a really hard time just standing and moving around. It's hard because the counter's up higher, and right now my arms and shoulders hurt, and it's taken about all the energy I have right now just to lift my arms and do this. But
I know that if I don't do this, I won't have the medicine that I need tonight.
We're not trying to legalize drugs. We're out here just trying to be well. If I have cannabis for the rest of my life, I could live the rest of my life.
I hate to make you go through this, but explain to them what it is you're suffering from right now. How many illnesses do you have?
I am actually very riddled with lots of different diseases, anywhere from wasting syndrome to an inoperable brain tumor to seizures. I have fibromyalgia, degenerative joint disease, and really the list goes on. I literally would die without cannabis.
At one point in time, you were in a wheelchair?
Yes, for 4 years. They were going to put me in home because I couldn't use the right side of my body. I was actually just vomiting from all the drugs.
Somebody came to you and suggested you try medicinal marijuana. What was your first thought?
I was offended. I was really, really offended because I was very conservative, a mother of 2, and the only thing I can think of when she said that was the cops coming with handcuffs to put me in jail, and it was a very scary thought. And if it wasn't for my daughter, my youngest child, who really didn't get to spend as much time with me when I was healthy as my son, who was 2.5 years older than her. And she used to cry at night, and I would wheel in there in my wheelchair to her bed, and I couldn't reach over and hug her, and I wanted so much to hold her like I did when she was a baby and tell her everything was going to be okay, and I couldn't do that.
Angel talked about a vaporizer. The whole image of a whole bunch of people sitting around passing a piece of paper around, smoking on it, get rid of it. Marijuana right now can come in a liquid form, not the government's synthetic fake form, but a liquid form. It's in a pill form. It is in a candy form. It is in a liquid form as a soda. You don't have to smoke it. It doesn't have to be smoked. I guarantee 3 days a week, I don't smoke it at all. I eat it. We take a break. We'll be back right after this.
To the challenge? In just months, High Tech Institute can train you to become a medical assistant, working with doctors and caring for patients. Medical assistants are in strong demand, and your training at High Tech Institute will get you well prepared for this rewarding career. You deserve better. You deserve this exciting career. Call High Tech Institute at 1-866-92-HIGH-TECH now.
There is a better way to rent.
Use and health in 2003 just reported yesterday on CNN that there's a 5% decline in the number of 12-year-old to 17-year-olds who have ever used pot or marijuana in America. The most striking increase was 15% rise in prescription drug use by children ages 18 to 25. You know, you have your kids out here today, over 5 million prescriptions of Ritalin written in the last year. We have our children so medicated on various things, and we wonder why they seek medication, but this particular drug is on the decline and has been among teenagers. You have a case right now before the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And what is that?
Well, the federal government decided to come in shortly after 9/11 to the state of California, where they started rating patients, providers, and caregivers in the medical cannabis community. And it was very frightening, and because I was so high profile from another Supreme Court case that I was involved in a couple of years ago, I was afraid of being raided and losing my life. And because they wouldn't, if they arrested me, they wouldn't be able to use other drugs for me because I can't take them. So the fear was just outrageous. So I decided to file a lawsuit against the Attorney General, John Ashcroft, and the DEA administrator at the time, Asa Hutchinson.
Excellent. Now, I should say this right now. There are 9 states where they have passed legislation to make medicinal marijuana accessible to people who need it. Those states are Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Maine, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. These are states where the people have spoken, yet the federal government can still step into those states and arrest anybody using. How many of you at home know that our federal government has been dispensing marijuana monthly for the last 20 years? To 6 people. It's 9 people?
8.
8 people right now in the United States. The U.S. government grows it, puts it in a container, hear me, and sends it out every single month to 8 pharmacies across the country so that 8 patients can go and get it. Why? Because the federal government looked at studies 20 years ago and knew that it was an efficacy issue. The drug works, so they're giving it. What happened is in 1992, President Bush stepped in and discontinued the program for anybody new. But those same 8 people are still getting marijuana today. So I say that's discriminatory. My pain's no different than those people's. You're gonna go. If they do not do this at the Supreme Court level, you get arrested, or I get arrested. If you get arrested because you have a little bit of marijuana in your pocket, you go to jail. Yeah. How soon after you go into jail will you be back in a wheelchair?
Oh, we're probably within days, because I would start starving to death because I can't maintain my weight. I'm only about 100 pounds, and without cannabis every 2 hours, I drop as much as a pound a day. So I would literally waste away. I would become just, I have so many conditions that my body, I can't get out of bed in the morning without cannabis, and I would become debilitated very, very rapidly.
Nothing is more precious than the birth of a child, and nothing is more devastating than finding out that your child may never be normal. I want you to take a look at this.
I was very excited to be pregnant, being a mommy. I first realized that there were issues with Jeffrey probably when he was about 9 months old, with temper tantrums that were not normal temper tantrums. You never knew when Jeffrey was gonna just get upset and hit you or kick you. He had started exhibiting obsessive compulsive tendencies by the time he was 9 months old, with whether his food was on his tray, on his high chair correctly, or his shoes weren't laced the right way, the loops weren't exactly the same. Jeffrey has been diagnosed with several different disorders: attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, conduct disorder. They tried ruling out bipolar disorder. It wasn't a disorder that they normally diagnose so young in children.
Jeffrey's behavior was very disruptive, abusive, for no reason, it seemed like. And it was sad. He's just a fun little boy when he's not angry, but he's angry 70% of the time.
Being over-medicated pretty much was his whole childhood from 3 years on. Adderall, clonazepam, clonidine, Depakote, Dexedrine, imipramine, Mellaril, Neurontin, Risperdal, Ritalin, Seroquel, Wellbutrin, Zoloft, Zyprexa, and he was on adult maximum doses. And you never knew what the side effects were going to be. Some of them would make him very severely manic, where others put him in a suicidal depressive mode. At one point, he had robots talking to him, telling him to kill me, and that was at age 4. He was angry, he was alone, he was very lonely and bitter because nothing was working. Our family had had enough, but a controversial medicine was about to open our eyes. Jeffrey used medical marijuana, and it worked. My child benefited from this medicine when no other medicines helped.
We thought she was crazy. We are conservative Christian family. We thought that medical marijuana was just marijuana, and it was an excuse for tie-dyed hippie people to get stoned. But the more she looked into it, the more doctors she talked to, the more educated she became, the more excited and hopeful we became.
Jeffrey's life changed immediately when he started taking this medication. I say immediately, 30 minutes. He got this smile on his face and he said, "Mommy, I feel happy. My head's not noisy." He started living life at that moment.
Jeffrey was calmer. He wasn't as angry. He had his first birthday party. He was placed back in public school. He made a lot of positive strides, and it made a big difference in his behavior.
We came up with creative ways to give Jeffrey his medical marijuana. We'd bake it in the oven, and then we'd put it in gel caps so it was easy for him to swallow. Never did Jeffrey smoke it.
If somebody told us that Jeffrey would no longer be able to take this medication, it would be devastating to our family. The thought of going back to where we were, I don't know, we would all have a lot of tears.
What do you mean, Jeffrey's mom and grandmother, when we come back? Take a break, we'll be back right after this. Please welcome the authors of the book, Jeffries' Journey, Debbie and Lorraine Jeffries, to the show. Welcome them. You said on that tape that if Jeffrey couldn't take this, you don't know what would happen, but why don't you tell them the rest of the story?
Well, you already had me in tears in the back.
I'm sorry.
Legally, he was able to take it in California. And the DEA raided the farm that we were able to get his marijuana from, and they took it away. During that time, everyone in the collaborative that we belonged to, WHAM, worked together to get the right blend of marijuana for Jeffrey. And we were never able to reproduce it. So unfortunately, Jeffrey's been in another residential facility for over a year now.
Stop for a second. Here's a child who could be home. The state and the people of a state spoke. They voted and said, we believe that in our state, we have the right to have doctors prescribe medicinal marijuana. The federal government steps in, destroys the entire process by which this child was able to receive it, and now he has to be institutionalized. I can't even, what else is there to say to this? We could sit here right now and talk through every bit of Jeffrey's story. We can talk through the fact of, we know for a fact that when he started utilizing medicinal marijuana, this little boy got better. He started to thrive. He could go to school. He was socialized. The teachers who were throwing him out of classes wanted him to stay there.
He had a life.
He had a life.
He had friends for the first time.
And you start to wonder, why? I know you even went to your local municipality, did you not? And let them know at one point in time, you were charged as an unfit mother for giving your son medicinal marijuana, were you not?
I was taken to court for providing a delinquent with marijuana and charged with being an unfit mother, and I won the case.
The judge looking at this said, are you kidding me? You see, here's part of the problem with this to me, is that I get it. The law had to be passed to stop, extraneous distribution, to stop us from setting up black market things. Nobody wants black market. Uncle Sam can do it himself. There's a drugstore down the street. They're already doing it. Yeah. Here's what I'm trying to impress this upon you guys. You have seen every message from the drug czar around this country for the last 20 years talking about how terrible things are. Yet that same drug czar had to turn his back and watch the federal government deliver 8 canisters of marijuana to people every month. It's being delivered right now. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna take a break. When we come back, we're gonna meet a man who Uncle Sam gives the pot to. Yeah. Now if they can give it to him, I'm sorry, I got a real problem. Jeffrey should have already had this.
That's all right.
We'll be back right after this. Now hear me. He gets it directly from the federal government. Take a look at this.
My name is Irvin Rosenfeld, and I am one of the 7 living patients in the United States that receives medical cannabis from the federal government. November 20th, 1982 was when I received my first government marijuana cigarette. At age 10, I was playing Little League, playing shortstop. I threw the man out at first base for the last out, and we went to throw our gloves up in the air because we won, you're excited. I went to do that, and my whole arm would not move. It was paralyzed. The hospital was across the street, and that's when I was diagnosed with multiple congenital cartilaginous exostosis, which means bone tumors on the ends of most long bones of the body. He closed the book. He said, you realize I just read you a death sentence? It's difficult living with the pain like that and living with what it does to you every day. I first found marijuana in college, so I decided to give in to peer pressure and try it, and that's how it started. I'm very fortunate to be alive. I feel so lucky to be a government patient. It's just not having to worry about where I'm going to get my medicine. Such a load off anybody's mind. I wake up, I've got tremendous muscle tension and tightness. Then when I get up, I've got to be very careful when I start walking so I don't tear muscles or hemorrhage. I'll go into the other room, to my den, and then I pull my tray out and I light up one of my marijuana cigarettes. Then I take out my baggie. I put a handful of marijuana, what I think I'm gonna need to roll for the day. And then when I take the first tokes of the cigarette, you can just feel the relaxation, the relief of the pain and the muscle tension. Therefore, I feel better. Therefore, some people just say that you're high. No, I'm not high. I'm just feeling a little more normal, more like what you would feel like. I'm a stockbroker. And that's a very highly, highly stressful job, very stressful job. This second to second, everything's happening. You're doing 5 things at one time. The government says if you use marijuana, especially 10 cigarettes a day for 33 years, you should be totally lethargic. You shouldn't be able to even think. You shouldn't care. Right? That's why I'm the perfect example of what the government is saying is wrong.
And please welcome Irvin to the show.
Every 25 days, I go to a pharmacy and I pick up this tin can that has approximately 300 medical marijuana cigarettes in this can. Every 25 days, and that's 11 ounces of marijuana.
Can I hold the can for a second? Because this is also grown at the University of Mississippi? It's
grown on the campus, University of Mississippi in Oxford, Mississippi. A farm's been there, I believe, since the 40s.
This is delivered by Uncle Sam.
Exactly.
When you smoke this, how high are you getting?
Not at all. I get no euphoric effect. I've never gotten an euphoric effect off cannabis or off marijuana.
But somebody's going to tell you you're lying. You don't know what you're talking about.
Well, they can say that, but I think the records that I have really speaks for itself. I mean, I'm a human guinea pig. I've been documented using marijuana for 33 years. Using 10 to 12 marijuana.
You have tumors starting in your chest.
I have bone tumors, and I have bone tumors all throughout my body. I have tumors that grow outwardly from the actual bone. It's actual bone that grows into the muscles and the veins, spreading them and making them very tender, very painful. And so movement at all can tear the muscle, more important, tear a vein, and I can hemorrhage. Before I had this, at age 10 when I was documented with what I was told what I had, I was given all the different pain medications, surgeries. I mean, when I would pull muscles and I would be crawling on the floor screaming, okay, knowing that once that happened, I couldn't move for the next week. And that's if I was between operations. And
how many operations have you had to remove?
That's 7 operations with approximately 40 tumors taken out. And I still have about 200 tumors left in my body.
All of this is because this was made illegal for the first time. Do you even know why? In 1937, with the passage of the Marijuana Tax Act, the United States effectively banned all recreational use of marijuana, but it went one more step further. It even banned the medicinal use and even the research of marijuana. So doctors can't even research it. They're so, why? Oh God, follow the money trail, folks. Please.
And Montel, I want to say one thing. You mentioned, why am I the only one, or there are only 7 of us, okay? In 1992, there were 13 of us patients getting it. 5 were AIDS patients. When they found it worked for AIDS people with AIDS, we got the protocol, which took months and months and months to put together. We got them to the AIDS organizations, basically it was fill in the blank. So then the AIDS organizations bombarded the federal government, George Bush Sr., with thousands of these protocols. Them not wanting to do this, what they decided to do was shut the program down. So at the time, there were 28 other patients who'd been approved by both DEA, FDA, and NIDA, National Institute of Drug Abuse. They never received their medicine. The 13 of us were grandfathered in. Of course, within 2 years, those AIDS patients died because they didn't have the cocktails they do today. So that left 8 of us. And then the first patient died 4 years ago. That left 7 of us, of which 5 I know. 2 have never come public. So, I don't know, maybe they're Secret Service protecting the president.
Let me take a break. We'll be back right after this. Welcome, Professor of Clinical Medicine at the University of California in San Francisco, Dr. Donald Abrams, and also the former White House Office of National Drug Control Policy's Deputy Director, former for Demand Reduction, Dr. Andrea Bartwell, and also Executive Director of the Marijuana Policy Project, Mr. Rob Campia, former Republican State Delegate from Maryland and Chairman of the local party, Mr. Don Murphy, and last but not least, Addiction Counselor and Director of Alcohol and Drug Services of Anaconda Deer Lodge in Montana, Mr. Roger Curtis. Welcome them all to the show. I'll throw this question out to begin with, and we'll get any one of you to answer. But my first question is, do we live in a democratic society? And of course, the answer to that question is supposed to be yes. If we live in a democratic society, and in 9 states, the people have spoken, why does not the government have to listen? I'll start with you, Ms. Barthwell. Doctor?
Well, the problem with trying to bring medications to the marketplace through a popular vote just is setting modern medicine back to the turn of the century. We developed a process through which we would evaluate botanicals, biologicals, even a molecule that we found in the lab. and would manipulate that in a way to increase its efficacy, reduce its side effect, and bring it to the people in a way that protected the public health. To say that we're going to set medicine back to the turn of the century when snake oil salesmen handed out medications from the back of stagecoaches really doesn't move us
But doctor,
forward.
we're not handing it out in the back of stagecoaches. No. Your government, your office, the Drug Enforcement Administration is sending this out to 8 people across America every single month.
Right.
Your doctors wrote the programs and protocols to allow this to happen. Your doctors agreed that this works. That's why he still gets it every single month. So now tell me again about a stagecoach.
Well,
Talk to me about stagecoach. Tell me about the stagecoach from Washington, D.C. that delivers this to a pharmacy every single week.
Well, there are some exceptions, and there are other patients that could get it through exception. But what we know is that the Institute of Medicine, independent scientists who determine medicine in this country, scientists and physicians, not by popular vote, determined that there was potential for medication development for marijuana, but that the research should follow the same scientific principles that we follow for all other medications.
And I see that, but obviously you just said this is different. This decision was made 20 years ago.
And I think that's why it still stands.
For 20 years in a row, there's been research garnered by the U.S. government. You can research this guy.
Montel, that's what I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
Here I've been getting this medicine for over 22 years from the federal government, and they don't want to research me. They don't want to even know what's happening with me. Now, what we had to do is we had to get a privately funded study where myself and 3 other patients went to University of Montana in Missoula, had complete evaluations. We had respiratory testing, we had brainwave testing, IQ testing, X-ray, everything. We did it all, okay, to make sure. And we all came out normal. Now, here I've used marijuana at that point was 30 years. And my lung capacity was 108% of normal. And the federal government doesn't even want to know how well this medicine works.
Dr. Abrams.
That's the sad part.
Let me ask you, Dr. Abrams, you have been doing a study for the federal government, have you not?
We did a study for the federal government. We're doing studies now funded by the state of California.
State of California. The federal government studies that you did was to determine efficacy of this drug?
Actually, the federal government study was to determine the safety of smoked marijuana in patients with AIDS taking the AIDS antiviral drugs. At that point in time, we could not use the federal government's marijuana to show that it might be beneficial because NIDA, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, has a mandate from Congress that they could only supply marijuana for research to show that it might be dangerous, not to show that it might have some benefit. Subsequently, NIDA has changed their mechanism so they can supply us now with marijuana so that we can look to see if it has benefit for
Can
patients.
I ask you a question? How long ago was this study?
1998.
1998. That was, what, 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Yep.
But you've been getting marijuana from the federal government for 20-something years.
Correct, 22 years.
So obviously some doctor at the federal government already determined it was okay.
In looking at the crude botanical, it has not met the test of medicine.
But it's obviously met the test of medicine for the federal government to deliver it. Somebody else discuss. Do you guys get what I'm saying? If she's going to say that it hasn't met the test, then you shouldn't be shipping it. But since you're shipping it, it met some test. And if he's getting it, and right now this woman can barely survive. And I see the look on your face when you say that, but you're not living what she's living. You don't even know what I'm living. You don't know what this lady was living, and don't even have the beginning of can't even get to it at all. Especially if you could sit here and say, we have to still do studies, yet the government's still delivering it. Well, while you're doing a study, let the government deliver it to me. If my doctor is smart enough to give me this one happens to be hydrocodone, but I got Oxycontin there. Sure. My doctor's, watch this, guys. I can take 1 to 2 tablets by mouth every 4 to 6 hours. Okay. I can take anywhere from, and believe me, for me to sustain and knock down my pain, it takes me 20 of these a day. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now I'm just trying to get something here. Now, we've done study after study after study. I'll read you the PDR on all of the adverse effects of this drug. Our government obviously said, we don't care about the adverse effects of this particular drug because for 20 years, we're going to go ahead and distribute it whether or not we allow it to be tested or not. So I'm sorry, I'm coming back to you. I don't care about drugs for other people. Okay. I'm talking about that woman is dying. I can barely walk. I'm saying, why can't the federal government expand this program to include people like myself so that I don't have to worry about getting locked up to come in and pay taxes to keep you and other people like that employed? I don't get it. Sir, you're a former congressman from my we're going to stay. Wait, you know what? I got to let you in, but I got to take a break or I got to pay a bill. Let me do that, and we'll be right back. Thank you. I'm sorry I keep you.
1994 as a law and order Republican, sat on the House Judiciary Committee for 4 years, actually 5 years, before I met an individual who needed to use marijuana for cancer treatment. He was a Green Beret Republican farmer from a rural county where I live. He needed it. He couldn't eat without it, and he asked me if I would put a bill forward in the General Assembly. I offered to do that if he would come and testify. Unfortunately, he died before he could come and testify on that bill, which now bears his name and was signed into law by Republican Governor Bob Ehrlich just last year. So, you know, I gotta tell you, I voted against decrim. I voted for higher penalties for large amounts of marijuana and other drugs. I voted against needle exchange. I voted against everything that some of the advocates, according to you, believe in, which makes my position rather powerful in that I, like many of the people here, voted against those bills, voted against the California prop, voted against medical marijuana or marijuana in other states. So when you are confronted with people who are in pain, my father died in 1997 of cancer, and I didn't even know marijuana's medicinal value for him. Didn't try and get it, but I can tell you one thing, elected or not, I would have, and I defy anyone in this audience or anyone else to say they wouldn't do the same thing.
Let me ask you, why not just, this is so simple. It's more simple than even the discussion we're having here. Change it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2. What is the problem? What is the fear? Schedule 1 drugs, just so you know, are drugs that supposedly have no efficacy whatsoever. Marijuana is in that category along with PCP and heroin.
That's correct. Well, it's even...
Schedule 2, though, is cocaine, morphine. So are you saying to me that, Montel, you should be a cocaine addict or an Oxycontin drooler rather than a functioning member of our society? Mr. Campia, you are one of those people that the nation fears because you work with a lobbying group that is one of the people that puts out all this money trying to talk people into legalizing marijuana and all that kind of stuff. So how can we support somebody like you?
Well, I'll tell you, with our annual budget of $5 million, I'll trade our budget for the federal drug budget any day of the week. The federal government spends $20 billion on an endless war on drugs that doesn't seem to be getting us anywhere. We focus our resources narrowly on the issues of keeping sick people out of jail who use marijuana and keeping healthy people out of jail who use marijuana.
Schedule 1 to Schedule 2.
Let me back up a second,
okay.
Mr. Williams. I understand the pain that the people sitting in this audience, or sitting here on the stage, are talking about. I understand your pain.
You can hear it. You hear it, but you don't understand it.
Yes, I understand it.
Okay.
I deal with it.
You
day
have it
in,
yourself?
day out.
Have you ever been on the other end looking
I'm a
up?
recovering alcoholic,
yes, sir.
addict.
Yes, sir.
25 years.
Okay.
What I need to tell you is day in and day out, I deal with people's pain.
Okay,
spiritual, physically, mentally, the whole 9
I got you. You know what? But I'm not going to try to put you.
My best friend died July 14th with cancer.
I got you. But I'm going to tell you right now.
And I sat by his side all the way through it.
You could sit by his side. You never felt how he felt. And I'm tired of hearing people tell me they know how I feel, because you do not. You don't know that when I can't take my toes and let them run down a sheet. You don't know when I go in the bathroom right now. I walk in that bathroom right now to go to the bathroom. My feet from my toes to my hip hurts. You've never felt it. Don't ever say to me, you know how I feel. You don't.
Yes, I do.
You may understand it, but you don't.
Montel?
Sorry, yes, ma'am.
What about someone like me who can't take other drugs? I mean, do you want me to just die? I mean, is that what I'm supposed to do? I can't take them.
She throws them up.
I'm allergic to some of them.
What does she do?
There are, as far as I know, there are prescription drugs that can help her problem.
I tried. It would be malpractice.
I'm not.
It would be malpractice.
Let's go down a list of drugs.
In the state of California, it would be malpractice.
Let me hear the drugs that Jeffrey was on.
He was on Adderall, clonazepam, Depakote, guanfacine, Mellaril, propranolol, Ritalin, Wellbutrin, Zyprexa, carbamazepine, clonidine, dexedrine, imipramine, Neurontin, Risperdal, Seroquel, Zoloft, and Zyprexa.
We know for a fact the only reason why there are this many drugs is because the drug companies will tell you themselves, and this is the reason why when they petition the government to get them approved, that not every drug works for everyone. They claim it themselves. Every drug manufacturer will tell you that pain pills will only work for 20 to 25% of the people who take them. That's why we have to have so many. So why not just add right down the bottom of this list medical marijuana and give a doctor a choice? Anybody? Yes, sir.
So research has been done that shows that there are receptors in the brain that connect with cannabis, or the main component of marijuana, that are involved in pain,
Doc, can you also say
modulation
this?
of pain.
Is there not also proof, and already that exists, that not only are there receptors already there, but in your body, the human body forms a chemical that is one of the THCs. What a lot of people don't understand is the government made something called Marinol. They took 2 examples of the THC that appear in a cannabis plant and made it synthetically. But what we now know that there are over 19 and possibly 21 different types of THC? Is that what you've heard?
Well, there are 60 different cannabinoids in the plant.
Okay.
And in our body, as you say, just like we make endorphins, our own opioids, we make endocannabinoids. And
Our
it's felt
body,
that they're
and
responsible
that's why
for pain
we have
too.
receptors for it, because
Right.
our body already generates, never having used marijuana at all, every person sitting in this room is making a cannabinoid that your body says, okay, it's there. It's a receptor. Why? Who knows?
Well, again, it probably relates to our experience of pain and control of appetite. And in our studies that we're doing in patients with HIV with painful feet, peripheral neuropathy, animal studies have already demonstrated that marijuana, where opioids don't work, works for nerve pain.
I am one of your walking, living examples. So, I don't know. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Consideration provided by the following.
Inventors. Invention Submission Corporation can help you try to patent your idea and submit it to companies. Call 1-888-762-IDEA for free information.
Got dry, cracked feet, ringworm, jock itch, psoriasis, athlete's foot? For fast relief of pain and itch, reach for the star. Blue Star. Ask for it.
I still want to go back to, what is the fear in making it a Schedule II drug?
I can't represent the federal government, but when I was there really was no fear of making it a drug if it had met the test of Schedule II. But Montel, the real story here is not to give people a crude botanical and have them smoke it or bake it or chew it or vaporize it. The real story here is that we know that there are constituent parts of marijuana that show tremendous problem, both as agonists, they stimulate the receptor, and antagonists, they block the receptor. And we are on the verge of a major scientific breakthrough that will probably take 10 to 15 years to complete. And our money, scientific money, has to be spent to develop these drugs and these medications in the way in which we do others.
And I understand that, but wait a second now. You know, we also utilize this, one of our top allies in spending about $17 billion that we just spent in the war, in Iraq. Our top ally, London, they have just approved a product by a company called GW. They've done all the research. We allow medicines from other countries that have been researched by other researchers in this country. They said Marinol doesn't work. Wait a minute, let me finish. They then, GW, took the plant, marijuana, took it apart, and have come up with a mucosal spray that right now, it's in a pause, but will be approved for distribution in London. So are you telling me that British doctors are smarter than U.S. doctors?
No, it has nothing to do with that. What they have done is that they have made a decision that the constituent parts of marijuana won't have their effect unless they are delivered in a milieu much like the plant. So they've macerated the plant and they can deliver it in a particular milieu.
Here's our number one ally. They did the research.
It is in clinical trials. They have not demonstrated its efficacy, and if they do, it would be considered by the FDA here for importation, and the federal government has been very clear about that. But it is in a stage of clinical trials that will allow them to show that it meets the 5 tests: safety, efficacy, stability, and affordability.
Our same government, because of supposed compassionate feelings, put drugs for AIDS on a fast track. And those drugs were approved in 2 or 3 years. And bingo bango, they're out there in the marketplace. Now, we've been looking at marijuana in America for 70 years. And you're going to tell me it's going to take another 15 years for you to be able to give me something that's approved all over the world?
No, I said it would take 15 years to fully realize the impact of this.
Yes, sir. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just wanted to talk to your point about Schedule I, Schedule II. I'm a cancer doctor and an HIV doctor, and you know, if I have a drug that gives people relief of pain, increases their appetite, decreases nausea, and perhaps improves their mood, You know, that's an important drug to be able to give people, especially with cancer, who are at the end of their life. And in 1997, after the laws were passed in California, Jerome Kassirer, who was editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine at that time, wrote an editorial calling medical marijuana federal foolishness and saying, you know, we know this drug works. Everybody has their anecdotal experience of people who have benefited from it. Get over it, reschedule it, make it Schedule 2. Unfortunately, he very shortly thereafter became no longer the editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this. All that in a bag of chips, but I'm going to tell you, it got to the point with me that I didn't even want to get up and put my feet on the floor. I started looking into using medicinal marijuana on a daily basis. And I got to say now, I publicly let the whole state of New York know I'm breaking the law every day, and I'm going to continue to break the law every day. Because it is the only way that I get up every single morning and continue to be a contributing member of this society. I go back to just at the beginning of the show. We call ourselves a compassionate nation. We say we want to teach the rest of the world to be compassionate. That's the reason why we're spending all this money trying to shove democracy down people's throats. Well, part of compassion is understanding that we may not have all the answers. All it has to do is a basic change from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2. And I'll go back to say this again. If we think our doctors are smart enough to prescribe to people morphine, cocaine, Oxycontin, Percocets, Vicodin, Oxyset, I go down the list of all those pain pills. If our doctors are smart enough to do that, the same doctors are smart enough to be able to say, I think this patient should utilize medicinal marijuana and I should be able to prescribe it to him. I don't care if you make me go to his office daily to get it. I don't care if you make me go and sit in front of that doctor and put it in my mouth so I can't give it to anybody else. I'll be at that doctor's office every day at 6 o'clock, guaranteed. Make it as hard as you want to make it, just give it to me. If you'd like to know any more information about this or if you'd like to know about future guests, I want you to check our website at www.montelshow.com for more information. I would hope that everybody who watches the show, if you agree, you know what, I'm just going to ask you. Take a pen, piece of paper, get the name of your local congressman, and I want you to write him a letter and tell him enough is enough. I'm out of time.